In a small village located beneath vast fields and towering mountain ranges, life for the people seemed to pass by in peace, but it was full of hardship. This village, though beautiful with its golden ripened rice fields and clear, sparkling streams, was immersed in poverty. The houses were simple small huts, and many people in the village lived off farming to support their families. The harshness of nature and the frequent bad weather made life even more difficult for the villagers. Mai's family, a young girl, was one of the most struggling families. Both of Mai's parents were seriously ill, causing the family to be unable to support themselves. In addition, the family was deeply in debt due to borrowing money to pay for her parents' medical expenses. Although still young, Mai had to shoulder a heavy responsibility to care for her parents and worked hard to make a living by doing farm work and selling excess items. Mai was a girl with long black hair, bright eyes, and a gentle smile. She worked tirelessly from early morning to late evening in the fields, undeterred by the hardships around her. Mai was easygoing, friendly, and always ready to help others in the village. However, the constant pressure of life made her yearn for a change, for an opportunity to improve her family's situation. One day, while Mai was working in the fields, the village elder came to inform her that a wealthy man named Mr. Nguyen Van Long had visited the village. Mr. Long, 72 years old, was a solitary man, and few knew about his past. He was famous in the neighboring regions for his wealth and power, but he was also known to be quiet, secretive, and without a family. When Mr. Long arrived in the village, the villagers were curious and surprised. He came from a distant land and had an elegant appearance and confident demeanor. His arrival disrupted the peaceful life of the village. A week after his arrival, Mr. Long proposed to Mai. His proposal shocked the entire village, not just because it was unexpected, but also because of the large age and social status gap between him and Mai. Mai's family, in their difficult situation, had few choices left. Mr. Long promised to help Mai's family financially and improve their life. Although Mai was young and had never thought about marrying an older man, necessity forced her to accept the proposal. The wedding took place in simplicity, without grandeur, but with sincerity and warmth. However, this marriage sparked much gossip and debate in the village. Many people saw it as an imbalanced and unreasonable union. On her first day as a wife, Mai felt out of place and awkward in Mr. Long's large house. Everything around her was new and different from what she was accustomed to. The house was spacious and fully equipped with modern conveniences, but it felt cold and lacked the warmth of family life. Mr. Long was quiet, often working late and returning home exhausted. Mai felt lonely and uneasy, unsure how to integrate into this new life. Not long after the wedding, Mai began to feel that something was wrong. She noticed Mr. Long often disappearing at night, and the house became eerily quiet. Strange noises came from the basement, causing her anxiety. One night, while trying to sleep, Mai heard footsteps and whispers from the basement. Her heart raced, but her curiosity and determination to help her family made her unable to stay still. A week after the wedding, Mai accidentally discovered a shocking secret when she found a hidden room in the basement of the house. This room was filled with documents and valuable items, revealing that Mr. Long was not only wealthy, but also had complex connections with many powerful people. Mai felt scared and confused, unsure what to do with this information. She realized that Mr. Long's help might not only bring benefits, but also pose many risks and dangers. This discovery created a deep inner conflict for Mai. She was unsure whether she should continue this marriage to help her family or leave to protect herself and her loved ones. The conflict between her love and devotion to her family and her growing doubts about Mr. Long made it hard for Mai to find peace of mind. She could not sleep at night, feeling torn and uncertain. Ultimately, Mai decided to investigate Mr. Long's past and uncover the secrets he was hiding. She believed that only by understanding the truth would she be able to make the right decision for herself and her family. With determination and courage, Mai began her journey to discover the truth, uncovering hidden dangers and secrets that awaited her in her new life. In the early days of being Mr. Long's wife, I felt as though her life had become completely alien to her. The large house felt cold, and there was no sound of family warmth. Every morning, Mr. Long left the house early and returned late at night, often silently walking straight to his room without a word. Occasionally, he would remind me not to enter the room in the basement, a room that was always kept locked. Though Mr. Long was quiet, I sensed that he was not entirely cold-hearted. He would leave simple meals for her in the morning before he left for work or bring her long bouquets of flowers in the evening. Still, the mystery surrounding him left me uneasy. One night, as she struggled to fall asleep, I heard faint footsteps from the basement. The noises were unusual, almost like someone was moving something heavy. She opened her eyes, her heart pounding. Despite her fear, curiosity overwhelmed her, and she decided to investigate. She quietly crept downstairs, but just as she reached the basement door, the noise suddenly stopped. The house returned to an eerie silence. The next morning, I carefully asked Mr. Long about the room. He briefly replied that it was just a storage room and that there was nothing to worry about. "You should focus on taking care of yourself and not worry too much," he said. Though his words seemed innocent, I felt something was being hidden. Her instincts told her that the room contained a secret Mr. Long did not want her to uncover. A week after the wedding, I decided to take action. She waited until Mr. Long had left the house, then took the spare key he kept in his drawer. For the first time, she opened the door that led to the basement. The room was pitch black, but the light from a small flashlight allowed her to see the details inside. What she found left her in shock. The room was not a normal storage room. The walls were adorned with portraits of young women, each painting exquisitely detailed, showing that Mr. Long had spent a lifetime creating these artworks. In the center of the room was a large table covered with papers, old photos, and neatly arranged notes. But what caught Mai's attention the most was a notebook lying on the table. When she opened it, she discovered it was a diary that recorded Mr. Long's thoughts and stories over the years. Through the lines of writing, I gradually learned more about him. Mr. Long had once been a famous painter, but his life was filled with tragedy. His wife, the one he loved most, died in a heartbreaking accident, a loss that led him to abandon art and live in seclusion. The paintings in the room depicted women Mr. Long had encountered throughout his life, but all of them resembled his late wife. This filled me with both sympathy and fear. Why had Mr. Long chosen her as his wife? Was she a part of his obsession with the past? At that moment, I heard a noise from upstairs. Mr. Long had returned home earlier than expected. Panicked, I quickly gathered the notebooks and left the basement, trying to stay calm when facing him. However, in his eyes, she could see that he knew she had entered the forbidden area. That evening, the atmosphere at dinner grew heavy. Mr. Long did not speak, but his silence made me feel as though all her thoughts were exposed. Just as I was about to stand up and leave the table, Mr. Long suddenly spoke. "What did you see in the basement?" The unexpected question made me freeze. She wanted to lie, but his unwavering gaze made her realize she could not hide the truth. With a trembling voice, I admitted she had seen the paintings and read part of the diary. Mr. Long sighed, his eyes deep. I don't blame you, but there are things you don't fully understand. Let me tell you everything." Mr. Long ended this part of the conversation with a promise to reveal the entire truth. At this point, the readers are left with a big question. What is the true story behind the paintings and Mr. Long's past? This creates curiosity, urging the readers to continue following the story to uncover the final secret. In the dim light of the oil lamp on the dining table, Mr. Long began to tell his life story. His voice was soft, heavy with sadness, each word seeming to resonate in the space around them. "I once had a different life, I didn't always live alone like this." He looked deeply into her eyes as if wanting to make sure she was listening. "I was once a passionate and enthusiastic painter." Mr. Long told the story of his late wife, Thursday. They had been a happy couple, sharing dreams and overcoming difficulties together. But the tragedy struck when she passed away in a sudden accident. The pain was too much for him, and he withdrew from the outside world, retreating into solitude. His only company was the paintings, which became the only way he could face his grief and memories. The paintings you saw in the basement, he continued, his voice hoarse, are not of other women. They are all images of Thursday, in various poses, as I imagined she would look if she were still here. I felt her throat tighten. As she looked at Mr. Long, she saw not just an old man, but someone who had suffered deeply. But the story didn't end there. Mr. Long continued to explain why he had chosen me as his wife. I saw something in you that I couldn't find in anyone else, your kindness, your resilience, and a bit of something that reminded me of Thursday. But I didn't marry you just because you resemble her, he added softly. I want to help you escape from the struggles you've been facing, just as you've helped me regain hope in life. I felt conflicted. She both pitied Mr. Long and felt as though she was just a substitute for his lost wife. But at the same time, she realized that Mr. Long was not only a wealthy man, but also someone with a wounded heart who still longed for love. She decided to speak her mind. I don't know if I can be someone special for you, but I want to live true to myself, not as someone else. Her words seemed to awaken Mr. Long. You're right, he said in a soft voice. I'm sorry for putting the burden of the past on you. From now on, I'll try to live in the present, for you and for myself. That conversation not only resolved misunderstandings between them, but also opened the door to a new beginning. Mr. Long began to change, making an effort to connect more with Mai. The paintings in the basement were brought out and displayed as a way to honor his late wife. But at the same time, he began painting again, this time inspired by Mai and their current life. Mai also changed. She no longer felt trapped in the role of a young wife to an elderly man. Instead, she found meaning in helping Mr. Long rediscover the joy of life and building a real relationship based on understanding. One day, Mr. Long sat before his easel, his hand holding the brush, his eyes focused on the painting. When Mai entered the room and smiled, he turned to her. Today, I painted you, he said, his voice full of joy. But this time, it's not an imagined image. It's really you. In the following days, their life gradually became more peaceful. Mr. Long began to sell his new paintings, not for money, but to share his story and the lesson of forgiveness and starting over. Mai, once just a young girl, not only found a more stable life, but also learned to love unconditionally. She helped Mr. Long heal his wounds and, in turn, found the strength to overcome her own difficulties. Ultimately, their story was not only about love, but also about compassion, understanding, and the healing power of time. When spring came, their home was no longer silent as it had been in the beginning. Laughter filled the air, and in that warm space, Mr. Long knew he had found a second chance to love and live fully. This part of the story ends with a sense of completeness, resolving the conflicts and showing the growth of both characters. Their lives were transformed through painful experiences, leaving the readers with a deep message about the power of love and forgiveness.